This conference will now be recorded.
All right, great. So, any questions, guys, before we get started? Anyone, any questions from yesterday's session on what are pipeline variables, what are variable groups, how do you declare them, and how do you override each and everything, and so on and so forth? Anyone, any questions out there?
Hey, good morning, sir. Ranjit here.
Go ahead, Ranjit.
Okay, sir, no matter how many priorities or how many order of precedence will be there, the order of precedence will be first will be pipeline variable, then it will be variable groups, right?
Correct. So it will
All
be
the same
pipeline
order.
variables. That's correct. So it will be pipeline variables that's coming first. So that will give you that is the having that's the one which is having the highest order priority. But we have to
Okay,
also mention the class that it is pipeline variable scope to an environment, and then variables
okay,
group scope to an environment. After that, pipeline variable scope to a release, and then variable group scope to a release. That's the order
okay.
of
So,
precedence out there as such.
okay, that answers. Okay, thank you, sir.
No problem. Any more questions, guys? Anyone, any more questions that I can take? And Deepak, I got your resume. I'll just check that out and I'll send the feedback by the evening today.
Yeah, sure. I have few questions which like I have gone through when I was attending interviews today.
Okay.
So
Uh,
shall I ask?
if it can wait, we can take it in the end of the session so that I can
Yeah,
consolidate and we can send the questions across. So
yes, yes,
I'll just take it by 7:50 or something like that. Okay.
sure.
Great. Yes. Anyone, any more questions, guys?
No, sir.
And again, guys, this is the time where we are sending the resumes out, and that's what Deepak is doing right now, is sending the resumes out, and he's attending the interviews, so he's getting a feel of what the exact interview out here, and what are the questions out there that's being asked from your resume. So if anyone is attending the interviews on their own, please make sure to schedule some mock interviews out here. I'll make sure to take out time on a weekend and schedule some mock interviews either in the evening. This is something that I can definitely help you all with. So please let me know. I mean, and also one, let's say, condition for a mock interview is that I need to interview someone someone from your batch, right? So you'll have to send me your resume, and you'll have to be prepared for the questions. Again, the point here is not to get embarrassed or not to, let's say, feel shy about it. It's just to make sure that you are better prepared for the interview, take the feedback prior, and then you can, go ahead and attend the interviews, and then basically take the same questions out there in the interview out here as such. So please let me know if you need any sessions out there, and we will make sure to plan some mock interviews and we'll schedule things out here as such. All right. So coming to, let's say, our Azure DevOps syllabus out here. Let's see. So let's see what we have so far. So let me write down. Let's give a quick overview of what all we are doing right now. So we have a repository and we have a branch inside that particular repository, which is called as a development. Which is called as a development branch. And using this particular branch and the code that is there inside this branch, I am asking my developers to commit their code into this particular branch using a feature branch out here. So they are using a pull request, and there is a pull request that's being established between their local machine and the develop branch of the repository. And as and when the PR is getting merged, their local branch is getting deleted because I put a squash merge, and also there are branch policies that are established. There are branch policies that are safeguarding what kind of a code is coming here, who is approving that, are they properly reviewing the code, is there a work item associated with it, are the comments being resolved, and also in case by mistake a developer goes ahead and commits a wrong code here, you also have an option to revert your PR. So revert PRs is also an option to go ahead and do it. So for example, I am a developer, I merged the wrong code. And because of that code, my entire CI/CD pipelines are breaking and my delivery is getting late. I can simply come here into the PR, I can hit the revert button and I can again send the PR back and restore my code to an older state what it was. This is the main advantage if you restrict someone to update a branch using a pull request. Also your version control, meaning whenever you update the code out here, each and every change that you have there, each and every change that you put in there will be tracked in the history of your branch and you'll be able to see who's doing what. So after this, you have a build pipeline and then you have a release pipeline, which is releasing the code into the Azure portal using a service connection. So you have a build, which is giving you the artifact. After the artifact, we have a release, which is simply going ahead and deploying the code into the Azure portal by using a service connection that is established between DevOps and Azure. And then we are going ahead and deploying the code onto, let's say, the app service. And then later, we are talking about infrastructure as a code, wherein I'm creating a template, placing the template in the repository, then going ahead doing a build and a release, creating the infrastructure first, and then going ahead and let's say releasing the code on top of that particular infrastructure that's created. So this is what I have been doing. Now, there are a couple of points that I need to address still. See, this is all now my SDLC, software development lifecycle. So I am from this point where my developer is starting the code from the scratch. I am now pushing the code, and from here, everything else is automated. My CI is getting triggered, my CD is getting triggered, my deployment is happening, everything is automated. And the developer can now go ahead, and the QA can now go ahead, or the operations folks can now go ahead, check the code on the cloud directly, test it out, and see how the code is really performing, and then plan. So now it's a continuous cycle that is happening in the form of sprints and all that stuff. Now let's do one thing. There are a couple of points where your SDLC can fail. What are they? Is firstly your branch. If an incorrect code comes into your branch, this code will either fail here, or either fail here. But in order to make sure that incorrect code doesn't come into my branch, I am protecting it with a policy. So just in case I know that there's a failure, I can simply go and revert it back and quickly deliver, let's say, the previous code out here. This is something that I can do. This is something that I can literally go ahead and let's say do out here. There are also point of failures here also. Build and the release pipelines, which are completely controlled by a DevOps engineer. So as a DevOps engineer, your duty is to make sure that you are creating these pipelines and also maintaining these pipelines, creation and maintenance. Now let's imagine that we are all a company, we are working in a company. You are a new employee of my company, okay? You just joined into my company. Probably you're a fresher, or probably let's say you have experience but not in the Azure DevOps domain, but you still are in the project. So I as a team lead, I as a team lead, I'm going ahead and asking you that, okay, fine, you know what, please update a build pipeline. I just give you a simple instruction telling that, okay, fine, please update the build pipeline because we need something like this. What do you do out of, let's say, you don't know, probably you delete something out here, okay? I just deleted it out. Here, you have to have a proper path to the CS project file in order to go ahead and let's say a pipeline to properly work. So I deleted it without unknowing, and I went ahead and made a lot of changes. Not one, not two. I made a lot of changes out here, and I saved this out. And while saving, I didn't even give a proper comment. I just went ahead and saved this out. A lot of people do that. If you just go ahead and let's say save, a lot of people actually don't give any comments. And in the history, there'll be no comments added. For example, there were a couple of comments that I added here, test run and all that stuff. In the release, when you do not have a comment, which is a very bad practice. It'll just go ahead like a blank, let's say, screen out here. So that's fine, not a problem. So now, as and when your developer is updating the code, this pipeline will get triggered. So I'll simulate a trigger. So as and when the developer has nothing to do with this. This is completely your control. You went ahead, change the pipelines out here, and as and when the developer is now committing your code, this is being now controlled by the policy. The technical lead of the development team is able to, let's say, look at what is the change coming in, revert the change back, approve the change, hold the change if it is not right, comments, put comments, and so on and so forth. And finally, it's coming here. Now, y'all tell me, guys, I made a change that was not supposed to be done. By mistake, I did something. Don't you think this pipeline will fail? Don't you think this will fail? Yes, no, maybe.
Yes.
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 So let's see that.
Yes, sir.
So let's refresh my screen. And it did fail. It's telling that, you know what, the file that you mentioned is not matching the search pattern. So I'm not able to restore. If this fails, let's understand this out right now. Let's understand what kind of an effect this will have, or this particular failure will have. If this fails, the release pipeline will never get triggered, because release pipeline to even trigger, right, you need build pipeline to be successful. If release pipeline doesn't trigger, the code won't get delivered into your Azure portal. If the code is not getting delivered into the Azure portal, the developer will simply tell, okay, fine, the pipeline is not working, so I'm not able to test my code. The QA will tell, okay, fine, you know what, even my delivery date is now pushed. The operations team will now tell, okay, fine, you know what is the issue? I need to answer to the client, because our delivery date is by the end of this particular weekend. Then why are we not delivering things out? And everything now comes down to the DevOps lead. They'll tell, okay, fine, you know what, your pipelines are failing, and because of the pipeline failure, all my software development lifecycle is now blocked, because my code is coming till here. This is not a developer's issue, this is a DevOps issue. Now please fix it. So now I, as a DevOps lead, I'm coming here, I'm understanding what happened exactly, and I go into the pipeline. So I'll say, okay, fine, something is happening. This pipeline is, I'm not able to understand why this pipeline is, let's say, failing out. I go into the history, I see the history, I know that someone has updated this pipeline, but I don't know what they updated. If I don't know what they updated, how can I even revert it back? Getting the problem here? This is a major issue. This is it's a serious issue out here, because what I'm now telling is that at one go, right, you can go ahead and update a lot of tasks. I would never know what tasks you have updated, what tasks you have not updated, and so on and so forth. One way to do it is, let's say, hit here and do a compare the difference between the last edit and something. It will give you some idea in a JSON format. For example, here it's telling this was the default value that I updated, and this is the original value. But this is very difficult, guys. The reason being, I, as a lead, right, I wouldn't even have so much of time to understand what are the differences out here. I wouldn't even know what kind of a difference is out here. It'll become very difficult for me to, let's say, keep a track of all these things out. I'll firstly have to understand. Then I see, okay, fine, this is what you updated, and what was the older value. This was the older value, and then I copy this out. Then go to my pipeline. Then understand that there is this task that has changed, this task that has changed, this one changed, everything got changed. I'll again need to restore my pipeline, and then this pipeline will start, and then this pipeline will start, and then the delivery will start. Which means that I, as a team, I am now blocking my entire software development lifecycle. Now, my demand as a DevOps lead is this: is that, you know what? If I am telling someone to go ahead and update something, let's ask a couple of questions. You are, let's say, the person who went in and updated this particular pipeline. Let's ask a couple of questions to ourselves. Firstly, did you require a work item to update this out? Yes, no, maybe. Did you have a work item? Did you link a work item anywhere while you're updating the pipeline? Guys, yes, no, maybe?
Yes, required.
Yes,
Yes.
sir. Yes, sir. Required.
Sir, one
Required.
more
But
thing
did
here.
I?
Just one question.
Mhm.
Like there might be some
Sure,
log
please.
file. There might be some log files when some error is triggered, so we can check in log file. We can troubleshoot it. Is possible?
True. Definitely. Using this particular log file, for example, if I go here, sorry, if I just go here into my pipeline, and if I go into the, let's say, restore, I can see the view raw logs out here. I can understand what is the error. I can see what basically is the error out here, and the error might be coming from somewhere. Let's say it's telling, okay, fine, this is the agent and all that stuff. This is the error. It is possible, provided you have the expertise to go ahead and let's say track the root. Meaning, even if it is possible, it needs some time for someone to go ahead and look at the error, look at the change, and then restore it back and so on and so forth. It'll be difficult, not impossible, difficult to understand what someone else has done, especially if there are no comments.
Okay.
So yes, it is possible. It is possible, but yes, my question is that I'm not asking do you require. I'm asking for doing this particular change. Did I anywhere go ahead and link my work item? Did I link a work item?
No, sir. No.
No, no.
No, I did not.
No,
Which
no,
means
no.
that even if you do not have a work item, you can, as a DevOps engineer, go ahead and edit any pipeline if you have the access. You can do that. Now, one more very crucial question is that did someone approve my change? Meaning, I did a change. Did someone tell that, okay, fine, please wait, I'll have to approve the change? Only then you can change it out. Did this happen?
No,
No.
Even this
sir.
is a no.
No.
No, no.
Because I can simply come here, make a change, save it out without even someone approving this out. Same applies to the release pipelines also. Same applies to also my release pipelines because I wish that I can apply something like a branch policy. Because as a developer, right, I am being restricted with a lot of things. Like there should be a work item. Without a work item, your PR will never get merged. Which means until now, unless your work is approved, you cannot go ahead and do that. Also, I need approvers. I need comment resolutions. I need merge types and all that stuff. These are protecting my code. Now, the idea here is that can I implement the same branch policies on my pipelines? This is what I want to do because if I apply the same branch policy on my pipeline, very simple, all these sorry, all these restrictions will also be applied to a pipeline as well. Because now your pipeline is coming under this particular, let's say, scope of link work items, check comment resolutions, and all that stuff. And now the answer is yes, I can go ahead and simply link my work item. Yes, this is required. Approvals are required. In case any failures, I can revert my changes with, let's say, less amount of time investing in troubleshooting. Because now I am delivering code to the production. I have a client sitting on top of my head. And there'll be a lot of pressure, guys. Believe me, there'll be a lot of pressure in a real time scenario when you start working and when things get failed, right? There'll be a lot of blame game that will happen. And at the end, people will be like, okay, fine, DevOps is the team basically which is responsible because, yes, of course, we are responsible for this particular failure out here. So, my question to y'all is that do y'all think that you can or you cannot apply policies on top of your pipeline? I'm talking about branch policies. Can I do that on top of a pipeline? What is your thought on that?
Yes, sir. We can apply.
We can apply. Then how can we apply? How
Under
can we
the
make sure
branch
to
pol
apply? Okay, under the
and
branch
branch
policies.
policy, there is something build.
There's something called build validation. But
Yes,
build,
that one I think.
yes, but build validations are something like this. I haven't spoke about it, which I have to cover it out. So I am just waiting so that I can club a couple of classes and cover things out. See, build validation is very simple. Is that it's telling whenever you raise a PR, there'll be a build pipeline that will trigger to analyze the code. We call this a static code analysis. So build validators are nothing but pipelines which get triggered as and when you, let's say, raise a pull request and they validate your pull request. That's it. That's what a build validation actually does. It's not
Okay.
the other way around. It doesn't apply policies on your pipeline. It will just check, or it will just trigger the existing pipelines to make sure to check your code that is there inside your that's there inside your feature branch out here as such. So yes, now tell me, can I apply the policy on a or can I apply the branch policies on a pipeline? Yes, no, maybe. Anyone? Any thoughts here? Again, there's no right or wrong answers. So I'm just trying to, let's say, get some thoughts here. Anyone? Okay, so let's put the question the other way around. On what all do you think the branch policy would really get applied to? Are we on an agreement telling that whatever is there in this branch, whatever is there, or whatever contents that belong to this particular branch will come under the branch policies? Can we tell this particular statement? Can we put forward this statement out here in this way? Yes, no,
Yes,
maybe.
sir. Yes, yes, sir.
Yes, which means that my build pipeline or my release pipeline should be saved inside the branch so that the policy can also be applied on top of it. Yes, no, maybe.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yes, sir.
There are two different services that I'm talking about. One is a repository, the other is a pipeline. All your pipelines that you create will get saved only under this particular sorry, will get saved only under this particular tab in the form of a pipeline or a release, either a build or a release pipeline. But the idea here is that, can I convert my pipeline into a file? If I'm able to do that, I can store my file inside my branch. Just like an ARM template I have, it's a file, right? It's a simple file. Even my code is nothing but a simple file out here. So all these are nothing but simple files. I'm just taking those I'm just taking those simple files out here and I'm just storing those particular files inside the branch and I'm applying the policies. So the point here is that, can I convert my pipeline into a file right now? If yes, this concept is called pipeline as a code. Yes, that, I mean, Azure DevOps allows you to do that. Azure DevOps really allows you to do that. So, for example, when we went ahead and we were creating pipelines, right? As a pipeline, as a new pipeline, as and when I did a new pipeline, did you all observe that we were using something called as a classic editor? So we said, okay, fine, use classic editor. We selected the branch, we selected all those things, and then we went ahead and created the pipelines out here, right? But you can also go ahead and create a pipeline using sorry, using something called as a YAML language. YAML. YAML. You can go ahead and start, let's say, creating pipelines in something called as YAML language out here. So this is syntax. It's a YAML syntax, just like you have something like JSON. This is one of the most cleanest languages that is available out here in the market. It's very simple to understand, very simple to, let's say, implement, and so on and so forth. And Azure DevOps allows you to store or allows you to create pipelines in a YAML syntax and save it as a .yml file. .yml, or you can also call this as .yaml YAML file, and you can save that file inside the repository of your, or inside the branch of your repository, and start applying policies on top of this particular file. This is what is the idea, is that can I go ahead and, let's say, create something like a YAML pipeline, or can I go ahead and, let's say, do something like a YAML file out here. This is the entire idea of a YAML pipeline itself. That's where pipeline as a code, as a concept, is taking a lot of importance these days. Classic was there, it was easier, it was good, but nowadays YAML is taking a very importance. So the importance of a YAML pipeline is, let's say, super high these days, wherein they're just telling, okay, fine, you know what, this is a YAML file right now, and you can create a pipeline in the form of a YAML file, and then you can start storing your YAML file inside the repository and start applying all your branch policies to it. And that's what we are going into. And we'll first understand what a YAML file is. How do you really write the YAML file from a very scratch ABCs of YAML? And after that, how do you apply that particular YAML language to Azure pipelines out here as such? And this is going to be the future, guys. Even if you look at the Microsoft is clearly telling you, or clearly indicating, that down the lane, like say about 6 or 7 years after today that we're talking about, they are going to move towards sorry, they are going to move towards YAML, and a lot of companies are making a move right now today. They are going to ask you a lot of questions related to YAML, a lot of things out here as such. So that's the reason we are moving and understanding what is YAML, and as much as possible, stay away from classic pipelines. As much as possible, try to stay away from classic pipelines. But using the knowledge of classic pipelines, we can create something like a YAML pipeline and so on and so forth as a file, and then we can go ahead and start, storing our files, and then going ahead and applying policies. And then if you apply policies, you can do reverts, so you can protect your software development lifecycle. The entire idea is this SDLC protection. This is what I need out here, and that's what I'm going into. But before that, any questions I can take till you? Anyone, any questions I can take till you? Okay, so let's
Sir,
begin.
good morning, sir.
Good, please. Good. Go ahead, Kalyan.
Sir, if I set 3 reviewers when creating a pull request,
Mm-hmm.
and based on branch policies, the 3 reviewers should approve my pull request, or else only one reviewer can approve my pull request.
So it depends upon the branch policy again. So for example, in my branch policy, as of now, I only have one reviewer, right? This is, let's say, a required reviewer. It's a required. Do you see this? It's saying required. If you say add one more reviewer called something like some name out here, right? You can make this as an optional reviewer or a required reviewer. If it's a required reviewer and you save it, now your, let's say, pull request should be approved by both of them. Both of them are required. So it depends upon who's a required reviewer and who's not. And you can add multiple required reviews out here as such. Does it answer your question?
Yes, sir, got it, sir. Thank you.
Is anyone, any more questions, guys?
Sir, I have one doubt, sir.
Go please.
Sir, if we add the 2 3 peoples in that
Hmm.
automatic in for the
Okay.
for the reviewers,
Okay.
so both should give approval, or if any one of them is enough.
No, both should give the approval. So that's the reason we have the automatic and the required reviews out here, right? Both should give your approvals, only then both should give the approvals. Only then your merge will get satisfied.
Okay, okay, sir.
So you can add them
Yes, and
either as a required or an optional.
okay, sir. Okay, and one thing, sir.
Also,
Mhm. Got this.
Using this ML, we can create sorry, release pipeline also, sir.
Yes, you can do build. You can also do release pipelines also. So you can
Okay,
do everything that we are doing right now with Classic. Everything that you are doing with Classic can be done with YAML also.
okay, okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay, so let's get started with YAML. But before going into YAML, right, I just want to help you all with JSON. We'll refresh the basics of JSON and then go into YAML. So let me open a new folder, because it's always better to start with what we know and then venture into what we don't know. So we'll take an example of a JSON file, and then from a JSON we'll go into something like a YAML file. So I'll say JSON YAML class one. I'll say select folder. Again, I am just using my VS Code. Again, my one-stop solution for it. I'm not going using any other tool out here. I'll be using, let's say, VS Code. And before I write a YAML file, just click on the extensions. Just install one extension or two extensions out here. Just type in YAML. And there are two things out here. One is YAML by Red Hat. Install this one. And then something called learn-YAML by Microsoft. Go ahead, go ahead and install these two things out here, and this will help you very simply write YAML files and make your life easier out here as such. So please make sure to add these two let's say extensions. Again, how do you add those extensions? Is just go ahead, click on this extension out here, and you'll have an option to install. In my case, it's disable and uninstall. You can just say install. It'll take a minute. So it'll take a minute and install the extensions for you out here as such. So let me do one thing. Well, let me first write a JSON file. In the JSON file, I'll say storage details.json. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to store the properties of a storage account in Azure, like the access tier, the name of the storage account, the resource group it belongs to, the location it belongs to, and all these things. Whether I need to create true or false, boolean values, and all these things is something that I want to go ahead and store. So in order to write a JSON, I will start and close, open and close, let's say flower brackets. This is how I start. And also it's all key value pairs, right? So I'll say name colon storage name, something like this, storage name one, just a hypothetical name. Key and value, put it in quotes, then comma, then I'll say location, another key value pair. I'll say east US2. Let's say I need 5 storage accounts of this type. I'll say count. I'll say 5. There's a difference between the ones that I'm declaring. This is a sorry, this is a string. This is an integer. I'm not putting the integer inside quotes. Then I'll say something like RG name. I'll say test RG. And then I would, let's say, give something like SKU, something like standard LRS. So I'm giving a couple of properties out here for this particular JSON file. I'm throwing all these properties in inside this particular JSON. Also, I can format this JSON out. I can have a proper spacing and all that stuff for my own, let's say, requirements and etc. This is how we write a JSON file. Right? Are we comfortable with this, guys? Because earlier we talked about JSON. How do you write JSON and everything? So are we comfortable in JSON before I move to YAML? Are you okay with this? Because I will take this as an
Yes, sir.
example and compare YAML. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
All right. So I'll now put a new file. I'll say storage details, same thing, dot either YML or YAML. Anything works. Any extension is super okay. You can put a YML, it's a short form. And This is how I'll declare it. Now it has a name, location, count, RG name, SKU. Same values in a YAML is declared in the form of key value pairs without any flower brackets, without any quotes, nothing. So I'll say name colon storage account 1. Very, very important. This is what separates a key and a value, a space between the key value. The entire YAML syntax works on spaces and indentations. And it also supports commenting. So the syntax of YAML is always a key value pair separated by a space. So hash, it's a comment, key, comma, value, or key colon space value. This is how it is. So there's a space in between key and the value. There's a space between that particular key value that is coming into picture. So this is something that you have this is something that you have to consider before you write YAML. And if I want to write, let's say, something like location, I'll just come down in the second line. I'll say location. Second line exactly under name, exactly under this particular name out here. I'll say location. I'll say East US 2. I don't even have to put a code, nothing. I'll say count. I'll say 5, space 5. Integers are supported. And then something like SKU. I'll say standard LRS. I'll say RG name. I'll say something like test RG. Same thing in JSON. How I did it, I put a flower bracket. I set key value pairs. I opened a key. I opened a value. I put everything in quotes. I put a lot of commas. If you miss a comma, you have a syntax error. So you have to put your, let's say, key value pairs in a comma separated value. And then in YAML, it's a clean language. When I mean it's a clean language, you don't need so many, let's say, commas. You don't need so many brackets. You don't need all these things out here. You can simply go ahead. Sorry, you can simply go ahead, work with spaces, work with all these spaces and etc. And there's one more advantage. If you copy your JSON, you know JSON, you want to write it in JSON, not a problem. Go online to the Google and just say JSON to YAML converter. You will have like tons and tons of converters online. For example, they have given a JSON to YAML converter. Left hand side of my screen is JSON, right is YAML. If I remove this out, put my JSON, sorry, put my JSON here. In the right hand side, I'll have a YAML here. I can have a YAML that is for me. So it's very easier to write a YAML as compared to JSON. JSON is a serialization language, which means understood best by the systems, best by the server. YAML is a non-serialization language, understood best by a human eyes. Now, if I let's say I have multiple storage accounts. I have multiple storage accounts that I want to declare in JSON. Guys, can anyone recollect how do we declare an array value in JSON? Array in JSON, can anyone tell me how do we declare that?
using square brackets.
Using square brackets, exactly. Using square brackets. As and when I put a square bracket, which means that if I have multiple storage accounts, I'll just copy this out or I'll just cut this out. Declare a parent property called storage property, something like this. I'll say array. Inside this array, I'll start declaring my values. I'll say storage 2. Because the properties can change, but I'm just giving some dummy values here. Storage 3, 4, 5, 6, multiple things out here. I can do multiple things, which means that this is a parent property called storage properties out here, which has internal properties like storage name 1, storage name 2, storage name 3. Each and every block defines a JSON object which falls under one particular parent called storage properties out here. And how is the parent and a child relationship established? Is by using this particular square bracket. So if I just come here, collapse this out, setting storage properties, I have a square bracket here. I can expand this out. So it's telling, okay, fine, these are all the properties of the something known as storage properties out here. In the same way, if I want to declare arrays in a YAML file, again, you can just copy the entire thing, paste it in, let's say that particular YAML converter works. Or if you want to write something from the scratch, even that's pretty easy. I'll again cut this out. I'll say storage properties. I'll say colon. I'm not giving any value against it. If I give a value against it, this will become a simple key value pair. It's not an array. It's a simple key value pair out here. Instead of giving a value, I'll say enter. And to declare the child properties to this particular parent called storage properties, as and when I come under the S of this particular storage, I'll say tab. 1 or 2 tabs, anything is okay. You want 1, 2 tabs, anything is okay. As and when you give a tab here, right, it tells you whatever you write here will become a child to this particular parent called storage properties. Whatever I start writing, for example, I just copied everything. I'll just paste this here. So this now, so for example, if you see this, let me take this out. These are all the same properties out here. It's not a child property right now, but as and when I put a tab here, this will now become a child to this particular parent. And since it's an array, I will have multiple names, right? What I'll do is I'll put a hyphen space. As and when I put a hyphen space, right, I'm now telling it's an array, and now it's giving all the errors here because there is an alignment that is missing. All these things, which is name, location, count, escape, should come under the same line. If I put one more tab, right, it will again throw an error because it's now telling, okay, fine, there is a parent inside which there is another parent inside which there are child properties. Something like this. I don't want to do that. I want to just go ahead one back, let's say tab, so that all these things are in the same line. Name, location, escape. Now it's telling, okay, fine. You have something called storage properties out here. And in the name, let me go ahead and put that name as, let's say, something like storage account 1. And then let me go ahead and copy all these things out. I'll say copy. I'll just say enter. And very importantly, my cursor has to be under this particular hyphen. It has to fall the same line as the earlier property. I'll say property 2, property 3, 4, 5, and so on and so forth. I can do this. I can simply go ahead and do this out. Now, each and everything is a property of its own. I can collapse everything same like I do in JSON. I can collapse each and everything in JSON also. Same like I'm doing here also. And also all these things now come under the parent property called storage properties out here. So this is how you go ahead and write something known as an array. And just like JSON, your YAML also supports strings, integers, Boolean values. You can also go ahead and declare array inside an array. Like for example, each and every storage account, let's say, has some containers. So in YAML, I can say, let me put a comma here. I can say containers, and I can give a let's say a square. I mean a square bracket again here, and I can say container 1 and 2, comma container 2. Now this becomes a child property to the container. This child property is under a parent property called a storage properties out here. In the same way, I can come here. I can say containers. I can do a tab and say container 1, say container 2, container 2. So now become child properties to this particular container. So all you need to do is hit a tab. As in when you hit one tab, two tabs, anything is okay. There will be a parent and a child relationship that will get established. This is how your YAML language will identify who's a parent, who's a child, and how can I, let's say, save my properties out here. So now if I just go ahead and save this out, let's say containers, and if you collapse this out, and then if I collapse this out, everything will, I can collapse everything out here as such. So this is how I can declare and I can store my syntaxes in the form of a YAML language out here as such. Yes, any questions still here? Anyone, any questions I can take clear on how do I write YAML again? If you want to just make a comparison between YAML and JSON, right? I'll just open this to the side. So on the left hand side of my screen, the same properties are able to see it in, let's say, JSON. The same properties you're able to see it in YAML. It's much more cleaner. When I say cleaner, I just mean that you don't have to, let's say, worry about the commas, worry about the brackets, and all these things out here. All you need to do is identify where the spaces or where the right spaces need to come in. That's it. If we are able to do that, then our JSON syntax is easier out here as such. Yes, anyone, any questions still here?
Hi, sir. Sorry.
Go ahead, please.
Sir, by using YAML, we'll just converting that pipeline to file something, right?
We will write the pipeline in the form of a file. Yes.
Okay, okay. By using YAML, we'll just write a pipeline, or else we can do anything, sir, in the Azure,
Mm,
like, yeah.
like if you ask, can I write an ARM template in the form of YAML? If that is a
Yes, yes.
question, and deploy it out. No, you cannot do that. These are, as of now, only applied to pipelines in Azure. And also when you move into something like Kubernetes or something, those concepts out here, they purely use YAML.
Okay, sir.
Yes, any more
Okay,
questions,
thanks.
guys? Okay, no problem. Any more questions, guys?
And this is
Only
only purpose
resource.
for ML pipelines, right?
I'm sorry, can you come again, please?
And this is only purpose for building pipelines, right? So,
As of now, yes, there's only a purpose to build the pipelines as of now. But in the later sessions, we'll also use the same YAML understanding in order to go ahead and, let's say, develop our concepts on Kubernetes and so on and so forth. Yes, any more questions, guys?
By using this table, we can create any infrastructure.
No, we are not creating infrastructure by using YAML because, as I said, it's a serialization, it's a non-serialization content. So you cannot just take this out and deploy it out to an infrastructure like you do with a JSON or an ARM template. As of now, you cannot, let's say, go ahead and use YAML to directly go ahead and declare infrastructure or create infrastructure out here.
Whatever the artifacts that the build pipeline produced, those are saved in the developer branch.
Not really. So we'll see that. So once you create a pipeline, right, we call it as a pipeline as a code. So just like, for example, if I want to give you an example out here, let us go to an earlier project. Let's see that to just give you an idea. Let's do something like the 9am class project out here. So this one that you see is a classic pipeline, just like the way we had, right? Same pipeline out here. The one that you see here is a YAML pipeline. It's a YAML build and release pipeline out here. So if I go ahead, edit this out, this is how a pipeline is written in YAML. So though your pipeline is saved in the developer branch, you're running the pipeline. Once you run the pipeline, it is going to produce the artifact, and the artifact is going to store in the pipeline only. See, artifact is coming here only. So artifacts will be stored in the pipelines only, but your pipeline in itself is a file that is sorry, that is stored in the develop branch of a repository. So if I see this, it's telling it's a develop branch, and we were doing a project called Android, and there I stored a file called build.yml file. And using this, I built an entire pipeline, which is build and release out here as such. Does it answer your question, Pavni?
Yes.
Is any more questions, guys? Okay, and I think Deepak had some interview questions that he wanted to address, but I don't see him on the call right now. That's fine. I'll take that once he's in, and we'll address those questions as well. Is any more questions before I close, guys? So all I want to do today is just to give you an introduction of why do we need YAML? Very important question. And then how do you write a YAML? Now, how do you write a pipeline? That is something that we'll see. But what I want you all to do is just go through the YAML basics. There are a lot of videos that are available out there in the YouTube. Just say basics of YAML. Just understand the YAML basics out there, and then we'll try to apply our knowledge of YAML onto Azure pipeline, and then we'll see in practice how that is implemented and so on and so forth. All right, so that's it from mine, guys. If there are no questions, then we can close the session, and we can call it a day, and we can meet tomorrow, and we can discuss on this. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.